So will more compression make my 420 powered mini bike faster? So this bike's running a billet flywheel, a billet rod, a 308 cam with the springs, 34mm Mikuni carb, and a pit bike exhaust. Then it's running a 40 series torque converter with a Comet driver and a 50 rear sprocket. It actually kind of slowed it down from 0 to 30 and top speed with the 50 rear sprocket versus the 40 that I had on here. The 40 rear sprocket kind of tamed it from 0 to 30 because of the higher gear ratio. So it made it a little bit easier to launch with all that big block torque. And then of course it had a better top speed with the 40 sprocket. So this time around, to see if I can gain maybe a little bit of my top speed back with the 50 rear sprocket, I'm gonna add this 27 thousandths shim head gasket. So it should bump the compression a little bit. And then while I have the head off, I might go ahead and do a little bit of port work. Clean up the ports a little bit, so that ought to help it out. So I'll take this bike out for a 0 to 30 and top speed run the way it's set up right now with the 50 rear sprocket, and I'll see if I can launch this thing. I'll measure the times as always with my drag gear performance meter so we get some really accurate times. And then I'll come back and we'll swap out those parts and I'll see if I can beat up on those times. If I'm not able to launch it with that 50 rear sprocket and get a better top speed, I'll swap on my 40 tooth rear sprocket, because that'll definitely make it a lot easier to launch and it will definitely have a better top speed.
A few minutes later.
I think I'm just gonna go ahead and swap that 50 out for this 40. I mean, it's a lot more manageable with the 40. And that's a pretty good difference in size. So to get this 40 sprocket to work on here, it looks like I need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 links of chain. I think it'll be a little bit more tame, a little bit more easy to launch this bike with the big block. And I'm glad I put the disc brakes on this bike. Yeah, this disc brake definitely helps out on this thing. So let's see if I can go get a decent 0 to 30 out of this thing. As long as I keep the front end down, it'll be okay. Man, this thing is still massively torquey with that big block. Even with a 40, it don't matter. All right, let me see if I can get a decent 0 to 30 here. And hopefully I get some satellites. All right, first 0 to 30 with the 420 big block on the CT200U EX. I did a little wheelie right there. A 2.79 with a wheelie. Yeah, there's really no way I can get a total realistic 0 to 30 with this thing unless I had a wheelie bar. But easily a 2-second bike. Maybe a 1-second bike if I had a wheelie bar. Trying to lean way forward on this thing. See if I can get close to 2.79. Man, I think it's a 30 quick. A 2.37. Man, I can get this bike into the 1-second range for sure if I had a wheelie bar on here. So anyway, I'll see if I can get a top speed. That'll be more where I can tell if the head gasket and a little bit of port work help it out. Man, 2.37, this thing is pretty quick. It's like electric bike quick. And with this 40 sprocket, it just kind of lugs along. Like you cruise along at 50 without even trying. Get a nice straight run without traffic. I could get this bike into the 1 second range if it had a wheelie bar. I mean, this thing is electric bike quick. And then we did a top speed of, what, 66.37. So now I'll pull that head off of there and throw on that shim head gasket. And then while I got the head off, I think I'll smooth out the ports just a little bit, get rid of the rough edges, just to kind of let it flow a little bit better. And then we'll see if we can beat those times. Now it'd be kind of cool if I could take this head off of here without having to take this engine off. Maybe. So you got that nice billet flywheel. Now I might be able to pull this carb off of here and without unhooking everything and just setting it on the seat. Man, that'll probably work. There we go, that'll save some time. It's cool that intake port, or that intake matches the intake port down in there perfectly. It's almost like a gasket match. It's a perfect fit. So I might as well pull this intake off of here. I'm gonna clean up these ports a little bit. Yeah, you can feel some serious rough edges down in there. So that should be pretty easy to clean up. And hopefully I can get all this stuff off of here without taking the engine off. Like this valve cover, it's close. Okay. So far, so good. It's kind of cool the Go Power Sports kit fit in this engine. Their Stage 2 kit was made for a Predator 420 with billet flywheel, billet rod, 308 cam. And then the springs, and if you didn't watch the build video on this, I only used the outer springs on this head because obviously this is not a Hemi head like on a Predator. So it has the slip-on retainers, and I didn't want to use the double springs, not knowing how much pressure these could take, but it actually worked out pretty good with the single springs. Pull the rocker arms out of here, and then the push rods. Yeah, looks like everything's going to come out without having to pull the engine, so that'll be nice. Pull up my lash cap, header pipe. I might be able to get it off of here. And torque converter is right in the way, right there, but that's okay. I guess I can unbolt the head, then pop it off there. So it's kind of cool. It's got this small plate under there. Kind of protects from rocks coming up and hitting the head. Man, I tell you what, these head bolts are on here compared to like a small block. I'm gonna figure out the torque spec on these. Feels like they got Loctite on these. Oh yeah. You got some kind of red Loctite in these or something, because they were in there. Oh, there went the pipe. Now I gotta remember to put that back on there, or shorten these exhaust studs. So they got big old bore. So it's got a dished piston. Man, these things are sure beefy compared to a small block, nice and heavy. It's got a nice fire ring gasket on there, but it definitely looks thicker than my shim gasket. What, 46.5 thousandths? 47 thousandths? So they have a 17 thousandths shim head gasket online, but everybody was sold out. So I had to go with the next best thing, which was 27 thousandths. So we're still dropping 30 thousandths off the head gasket, so that should bump the compression. So this thing is supposed to be 27 thousandths compressed. It definitely should help it out, hopefully. And then I'll port the head a little bit. Man, this is like one of the worst heads I've seen. Look at all the casting material that's left in that port right there. Down there on the right, on the lower right. This one's definitely leaving a lot of power on the table. I mean, it's just got a bunch of casting material in there. And then right there. So if you have one of these $165 big blocks, I think there's a lot of power left in this head just by simply cleaning up the ports a little bit. And then while I'm at it, after I clean them up, I think I'll lap the valves in just to make sure too. Because I know on my cheap, inexpensive 420cc chambered head that I got for 14 bucks, the valve seats were totally not sealing. I mean, you could see the light through them. So this one might be the same way. So I mean, there might be a lot of power right here, maybe. Okay, so now That's a lot better. Everything is nice and smooth. Everything transitions. It's nice and smooth. Man, it's easy to port one of these big block heads. There's so much junk inside the port, at least on one of these cheap ones anyway. Well, up here on this port floor right here too, it was rough right there. I mean, it had a big chunk right there. Because usually there's just a line where it has a ridge. This one here had like a big block of material right there. So now it's nice and smooth. So now I will go ahead and lap these valves in just to make sure. The little valve grounding compound on here. So that looks so much better. Even on the valve seats, it looks a lot nicer now. They will actually seal. This is just like my other cheap head, like I was saying, my 420cc chambered head, did the same thing. So this thing ought to run a lot better. Had to use my homemade tool on here to screw this down to compress these springs because they're so tight, but they're so strong. It's really hard to do it with your thumbs. Okay, so there we go. So that was some easy power, I think. I mean, so you figure porting the head, lightly porting the head, and then lapping the valves in. A couple hours later, and you got a lot more free power. Maybe. I guess we'll find out. Even with the thinner head gasket, you shouldn't have any piston to valve clearance issues with the 308 cam. I mean, we got the dished piston there. Throw some oil on these head bolts so I get a decent torque reading. So I'll torque these down to 312 inch-pounds. At least that's what it says for a Predator 420. So the cam card on this 308 cam calls for the rockers to be adjusted to 3 thousandths. Let's see if we can beat up on 2.370 to 30 and what was it, 66.36 top speed. But this has got to be the worst head I've seen as far as casting material in the port. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there. So this thing should smooth it out or help it out a little bit, you would think. So anyway, I guess it's got to run first though, so we'll see if it starts and then we'll see if we can beat those times. Oh, almost first pull. We can beat up on those times. If I can keep the front end down. It's crazy how torquey this thing is, even with that small sprocket. I mean, it feels about the same, but it's really kind of hard to tell. See if I can get some satellites here with the draggy. It seems like they updated the draggy because it picks up satellites quick now. All right, 0 to 30 with 27 thousandths head gasket and a little bit of port work. All right, there's a 2.74 right there, but I kind of rolled into it. So let me try that again. There we go, a 2.43. So let me try that again. So it's pretty much the same. I mean, like I said, it's hard to launch either way, but let's see. how quick it grabs 30 right there with that small tiny sprocket on there, with that 40 sprocket. All right, let's see if we can do it again. 0 to 30. .35. So the quickest time so far. So definitely just as quick. And like I said, that's pretty limited because I can't really get on it all the way because it'll just do a big wheelie. So we'll see if we can beat up on 66.36 top speed. Make sure nothing's falling off. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, that thing's got a lot of mid-range to it, a lot of pull. But I don't know if that'll translate into more top speed. Well, I guess we'll see. Grab speed quick though. Along at 60. Lugs along without even trying. Oh yeah, I think it's going to be a lot faster. We already pretty much matched the time going up the hill through the neighborhood. We already did 66.25, so I think it definitely has more top speed to it now. Just kind of lugging along there at 66 miles an hour. All right, I'm running up the street here. I'll do it on the same road I did last time. Top speed. Traffic on this road. Let me see if I can take it down the side road. Because it seemed like it was still pulling, but I'm pulling up on cars, so. This thing got a lot more top speed. It already did 71.29 right there, and it was still pulling. Man, that made a big difference. Because before it would reach top speed, about 66 miles an hour, and it would kind of sit there. But now at 71.29, it was still pulling. I think this thing has more in it. And it just lugs along at 55 like nothing. You just kind of cruise along. If you get on it, man, it pulls hard up here towards the top. That's got a lot of top speed. So the compression and port work made a big difference. So with the stock compression and no port work, we did 2.37 and 66.36. Then I added a 27 thousandths shim head gasket and then did a little bit of port work. And we dropped to 2.35 and then 71.29, and this thing was still pulling. So up there at 71.29 miles an hour, this thing was still pulling. I mean, so the port work and compression definitely made a difference. You can tell now that the 420 has the torque to pull through that really small sprocket and those tall tires. Because before it would set around 66 miles an hour and it would kind of stop. but now it just keeps pulling. So I really don't know the true top speed. I'll have to find a nice straight road with no traffic. So those were definitely two inexpensive mods that made a big difference.